Alright guys, I'm putting in the rear glass here. You guys can see that the glass is in there. And the method I found that makes it easiest, as the rear glass has always been a bit of a pain to put in this car, is despite what they show you in the instructions, which I'm going to put right on the screen right here. And they have you put the glass in first, and then the interior gets put in further down the road as far as the instructions go. I found that if you don't use the interior to place the glass securely, then you are going to have trouble getting it to sit where you want it and join the chassis and the body and the window and join everything together where it's supposed to be. Because the glass rides, let me show you on the interior. The glass sits on the interior in this channel right behind the seats. There is where the glass is going to sit. And then it goes attached to the body. Let me just show you. Hold on just a second, guys. Now, the rear glass rides in this channel on the interior and then goes up against the body on these small pegs that they have here, which are very small and don't do a good job of holding the window in place. Now, they also have some on the sides here, but the glass is not wide enough to fill this entire thing from side to side. It will be a couple of millimeters off. Not really visible when the model's together, but I don't know if you can even see it here. There's gaps on the sides, which I'm going to try and fill and see if I can do something about that. Because the rear glass does not sit perfectly in the interior. So when you're trying to get it to sit here and meet up here, the instructions tell you to mount it to the body first. So you're going to mount it there, but you're not going to be sure if it's going to sit perfectly straight when it comes time to mate it with the interior, as the interior is going to go in this way, and in a perfect world it would just fall right into the glass, would just fall right into the channel as you line up the interior with the body. And we all know that in MPC no world is perfect. So I found the easiest thing to do is to lay your bead of glue on the roof. Don't even bother with the sides because the glass will never hit the sides. So the glue will do absolutely nothing. You can reinforce that with a little bit of glue after the glass is secured on the top here. Lay the bead of glue there. Use a slow setting glue. I use the Tester's clear part cement. Let that tack up so that you can sit the window in the rear, and it'll stay where you put it for the most part. Then I use the interior, install it so that it holds the glass in the perfect position relative to where the interior is going to sit when you start putting it together. And that is going to join everything together exactly the way you want it when you're ready to go to your final assembly. So hope that made sense. But that is the one way I found that makes the assembly process easier and gives your rear glass a nice solid mounting position relative to the other sub-assemblies. It's a shame they didn't do like Monogram with their kit and make a one-piece front and rear glass and sunroof assembly, as that would have made installing the windows quite a bit easier. But That's the way MPC did it. So you have 3 pieces of glass as opposed to just one. It's not horrible. Okay, guys. Now we're up to the point where we're going to start laying some carpet in the trunk. Now, how we do that, I've done it plenty of times on the channel, but I'll go over it for anyone who may not have seen it. Unless you guys want to go back and watch all of my videos, which I highly recommend. Not just because they're my videos. Well, yeah, it is because they're my videos. And come on, guys. Help a guy out. Leave a couple of likes, thumbs up. You know, helps with the algorithm, helps to spread the word of the channel. Could use a little help with that. So, anyway, what I'm going to do is show you exactly what I do to do a carpet. Now, the first thing that I use for my carpeting is embossing powder. I used to use flocking powder, but this is much easier to deal with, much easier to clean up, just less of a hassle overall for everything. So I really, really like using this. Now, the other thing I use is Mod Podge as a glue to hold the embossing powder in place. Now, the Mod Podge I use is the matte Mod Podge so that it doesn't have any shine coming through the carpet, because we know carpet's not shiny. So the first thing we do is open up our Mod Podge. Ooh, and spill it. That's always a good part of Mod Podging. And we're going to have a little bit in the cap. Now what I like to do is I grab a big, saturate my brush with water, and then let's just thin out and dilute the Mod Podge a little bit. And that's going to help it to just soak into every nook and cranny. And now this is the bottom part of the trunk. What I do, I'll just basically paint the trunk with the Mod Podge. This is so simple, you're going to wonder, why have I never done this? If you never have. There we go. Just get some Mod Podge everywhere. And there's Mrs. Onyx Fiero out there just being Mrs. Onyx Fiero. Now what I like to do is I always maintain a container to catch the excess. Because what you're going to do is just take, let's move this over here. I always forget where the camera is. You're going to take the embossing powder and you're just going to pour it into the area that you want to carpet. That's all you're going to do. Just fill it up in there. Make sure that it gets into every area that you just finished Mod Podging or Modging, whatever. I still haven't found the word to really cover what we're doing here. And just let the embossing powder just get into all the areas that you want. There we go. Now once you got that in there, you're going to pour out the excess. Loosen up all the extra. And voila, look at this. In one simple move, you have a fully carpeted trunk. See that, guys? Very, very easy to do. And the cleanup is extremely easy because all you're going to do is take what you have excess and pour it right back into your bottle. You see that, guys? And we already have half of our trunk fully carpeted. It's the same way we did the interior. So if you guys haven't seen that episode when I did the interior carpeting, you can go back and watch that. And there we go. Fully carpeted lower portion of the trunk. Now we're going to carpet the upper portion next. So guys, when you guys want to hang out, you can watch me do that. So just clean off the excess here. There we go. So that's going to be next. So we got a pretty good coating there. And there you can see the trunk is there. It's nicely laid out. A couple areas where we may have to do a little bit of touching up, but for the most part, I think we have a pretty good carpeting laid on the trunk there. Really does give the appearance of carpeting. This embossing powder, it's some really good stuff. Alright guys, we are getting closer and closer. Latest little update here. I've got the interior installed finally. It's permanently installed in the body. Looking pretty good there. Added another little detail here. That there is our RPO label, as every Fiero has one on the fender well. So I put a small little decal there just to represent that. And this is the current state of the battery. Added some extra detail there, a little bit of painting, put 2 small brass terminals on it. In case you're curious, this is what the battery looks like before all the detail work. So I think it looks better with all the detail work. What do you guys think? So it is engraved with the Delco AC Delco name, so we did that. Little red, white, and blue decal similar to the AC Delco. Put a danger decal and some on the front just to add a little more detail there. So the battery's good, ready to go into the car. I'm going to see about adding some battery wires, cabling to it, and getting this thing in there. So we're still going with this. Alright guys, we're flying through this build now since we're getting close to the end of Fiero Blue. I think we're just going to keep going until we get this thing finished. Now I better point out something I noticed. If you remember Fiero Gray, the chassis was very warped, whereas if you made contact with the body in the front, the rear would drop out. Put it to the rear, the front would drop out. Now, this one still has a slight bit of warpage, nowhere near as bad as Fiero Gray did. So, as you can see here, I already have the front glued in to the body, so that's in the right position, but you see that? Let's see if we can get... Nowhere near as bad as Fiero Gray was, but there is still just a slight bit of warpage in the chassis, which leads me to believe that Fiero Gray's, the decades that it spent locked in that box, is more responsible for the warpage than any defect in the kit itself. As you can see that this one only has a slight bit here. So we're going to do exactly the same thing we did with Fiero Gray, which is we're going to glue it down, lock it in place with a clamp, and for that we use our trusty Husky clamps. Okay guys, we have the rear end glued down. Put a little super glue on, a little accelerator, and now we'll just have our trusty Husky clamp to hold the back of the model in place. It's nowhere near as bad as Fiero Gray was, so we don't have to put that much pressure on it to hold it together, but at least this way when we go to install our tires, since it's going to be very critical for our ride height and the stance of the vehicle, that we have the chassis and the body mated together in the most precise way possible. Alright, with all the work we've done, now we're going to see what some of our results are. The body is completely installed now on the chassis. Very happy with the way that turned out. One of the issues that this kit has is that the rear bumper doesn't exactly fit 100% correctly. So there you're just going to have to kind of get it as close as possible. It does look good when it's all together. But there are one or two fit issues with this rear bumper. Another thing I wanted to mention was just as we found on Fiero Gray, the vents I found on this one as well. I thought it might have just been an issue with Fiero Gray, but I did find it on this one as well, is that the vents are bent in a downward position, like I showed on Fiero Gray. Now, this one also had the exact same issue, in which case I had to, on Fiero Gray, I heated them and bent them upward a little bit. This one wasn't as bad, so I was able just to bend them up a little and then glue them into place, and they held. If you don't do that, you'll never get the rear deck lid to sit correctly. Or close to correctly. I'm still working on getting that to sit totally flush. Now, the last issue I had with this kit was, as we've seen on Fiero Gray, which I'm going to show you in a second, the wheels and tires never fit this model correctly. The way they're meant to be installed, it just doesn't work. In the front, they stick out too far. The rears stick out also, not as bad as the front, but they do stick out pretty badly. So I think I found a solution to that. So let me show you guys what I've come up with. Okay, guys, if you see here, we've got the cutaway Fiero that I built in the center. This one I built years ago. The Fiero Gray, which is built box stock as a promo build, or a test shot build, as they call them. And we have Fiero Blue. Now, my biggest gripe with this kit, even though it's inaccurate and certain things just aren't made correctly, that's okay. I can work with that. What really, really bothers me the most is the way the tires and wheels sit on this model. Here you can see on the cutaway Fiero how far out the tires stick. It's on one side or the other, they're just going to stick out too far. If we look at it from a front view, you can see how far further out the thing looks like it's riding on truck tires. On the cutaway car, it's not such a bad deal because you have no fenders or anything here to really make it look horrible all around. And here you can see the wheels not centered correctly. And they both just stick out way too far. Take a look at that. And now, on the test shop build, Fiero Gray, which I've made with making no alterations to the kit at all, just building it exactly the way you would build it if you put it right out of the box. Look at that. That's just horrible. Making no changes. I thought maybe I'd use the wrong offset wheels in the front, but no, they're all the same all the way around. But look at the way that he fit. That is just horrible. Never been happy about it. And I know my goal with this Fiero Gray was to just build it right out of the box, following the directions exactly, and putting it together the way you would, making absolutely no changes to it. But that really, really bothers me. So let me show you what I have found so far in ways of correcting that. Fiero Blue is going to be my first attempt at making the wheels fit this MPC kit properly. Now, this is my first mock-up of one wheel. You can see here how it's completely flush with the body, just like on the real car. And that's exactly the way it should be. Now, one thing we'll also note, let's bring back Fiero Gray as our poster child for what's wrong with this kit. Look at how high that front end sits. And the rear, for that fact. Although the rear, not so bad. I could actually live with that. But that front end just sits horrendously high. Same thing on the cutaway Fiero. So this is the stance I've got on Fiero Blue. Now, I could raise the front end just a little bit more. I kind of like it where it is, as I do think that's really going to look good once all four wheels are on the car. And you can see there how it fits the way it's intended to. Now, this is just a mock-up. I just put a little Mod Podge on there to hold the wheel in place as I work out my spacing for the height of the car and the wheel spacing from front to rear. Now, let me show you what I did to get to that. The first thing I did was cut off the post that you're supposed to attach the wheels to the original posting, as that's what's the cause of a lot of the problems here. The next thing I did was that I took the original wheel hubs that come with the kit. Now, instead of gluing the wheel hubs to the wheel backs, as the kit instructs you to, as you see here, let me just put a little light on the subject. As you see here, I didn't use the wheel backs at all. I glued the hubs right to the wheel. And then I spaced the wheels in a way that I could get the height where I wanted to. Now, you can see here how much further in the wheel sits, that it actually covers part of the control arm. Let me see if I can give you guys a good look at that. Okay, let's just put you down. Now let's see if we can... There we go. You can see where it covers part of the control arm. Now, whoops, if we look at Fiero Gray, you can see how much further out with the wheel back and the disc brake assembly installed. You can see how much further it pushes the wheel out than it does here. See if we can look at them together here. Let's see. You see that? So the only way to get the correct spacing and keep the wheel within the body where it's supposed to be is to remove the wheel back and the disc brake assembly and just install it with the wheel and the hub onto the spindle. As that's the only way you're going to get the correct spacing, because there's not enough room in there really to add anything else. And you're not really going to see much of that when the car is sitting correctly, as this is what you're going to see. And that's going to be the stance that the car has in the front. Still working on the rear to see what I can do with getting that correct, but I'm very happy with the way that looks. It is possible I can raise the car just slightly if I wanted to give it more of a stock stance, but I'm happy with the way that looks. And since I'm building this for Ronaldo, I'm going to be sending him a photo of this, and if he's happy with that stance and that height, then that's what we're going to go with. But I like it. Alright guys, that's going to be it for the current status of this build and the changes that we're making on it in order to get it to look much better than that. Because if you look at that, look at how much sleeker it looks in the front. Even the real car had the right height, needed to be just a bit lower. But I really like the way that looks. So I will be talking to Romaldo, and if he's happy with that wheel height, then that's where she's going to stay. And so will Red. Alright guys, that's going to be it. Remember, like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, and leave some comments. Tell me what you think. I mean, I love responding to you guys, and hearing what you guys have to say, and if you got some ideas as to how maybe I can make the stance of this thing a little bit better, just toss them in the comments. I respond to everybody, or as much as I can, as timely as I can, but I read every single comment and I really appreciate them. All right, guys, I'll see you on the next one.